For e-commerce stores that struggle with their paid advertising on social media, a guide on how to monopolize your industry utilizing the power of paid acquisition on paid social, a definitive guide of getting more out of your already existing ad spend, piercing your market, and thereby increasing volume utilizing the power of paid advertising. And as you know, it is the winner that essentially takes all while the loser watches from the sideline. So let's get going with this guide. Now, the core concept and the core thesis of this guide is the blue ocean strategy because finding steady ground and from there scaling your advertising spend whilst still remaining profitably long term requires you to create your own market and leveraging the blue ocean strategy. And that's what I call the new way or the new model of capital efficient growth in 2024 for e-commerce stores that essentially want to increase the volume through paid media. And if you don't create your own market when you want to scale your advertising spend, you will realize that you at some point hit a glass ceiling where you can't increase spend further, because if you try to increase spend further, you suddenly see your customer acquisition cost and your cost per action increase wildly. And that point can essentially that can vary from e-commerce store to e-commerce store. If you are in a native industry like, let's say, apparel, you might realize that that plateau is at a higher level of spend compared to the e-commerce stores that are in a more niche industry. But it's incredibly important that you essentially create your own market if you want to scale your advertising spend, so you don't reach that glass ceiling where you can increase spend further. And the blue ocean strategy is the simultaneous pursuit of differentiation in your industry and low customer acquisition costs to open up new market space and create new demand. It's about creating and capturing uncontested market space that your competitors haven't tapped into, thereby making the competition irrelevant. And it's essentially based on the view that market boundaries and industry structures are not given and can essentially be reconstructed by the actions and the beliefs of industry players, meaning that the best and most successful direct to consumer brands in any given market create their own market. So if you essentially, and I recommend you to look at the stores and the brands in your industry that are doing the best, you realize that they are constantly on the look for creating new market spaces that they can tap into, so they don't hit that glass ceiling of a certain amount of spend where the customer acquisition cost suddenly just increase like crazy. But you might ask yourself, how can you create your own market? Because by definition, market research won't help. Now, if you want to create your own blue ocean strategy, you need to solve for your value hypothesis, meaning your product market fit, and then you need to solve for your growth hypothesis, meaning that how you essentially scale after your initial product market fit. And I have taken this graph with me to essentially illustrate the process. First and foremost, you as an e-commerce store need to have problem solution fit that essentially translate into product market fit. And when you have your product market fit, you can solve for scale. Now, I have actually taken a case study with me here of a client of mine, a tile selling brand here in Denmark, a 29-minute case study that's already on my channel, where you can see how we essentially created our own blue ocean to increase spend further and further, so we didn't hit the glass ceiling. And in this specific case study, we have increased spend 3 times in a relatively short amount of time that I also talked about in the case study. The case study is 29 minutes long, and it shows you how I have done it for this client of mine. It's already on my channel, and it's called State of the Art Paid Acquisition on Meta and Offer Creation. And I recommend that you have a look on that case study, view the case study to see how I have done it practically for one of my clients. Now, then you essentially also need to make sure that your messaging in your advertising and on your access channels matches the unique value that your product essentially offers, because this will help your revenue to keep steady instead of you having your revenue bounce up and down, which is what I call revenue divergence. And if you is or you probably have experienced that in some level as an e-commerce store owner, that your revenue just seems to be going up and down as the wind goes, instead of you having that steady ground where you can rely on steady revenue throughout the year, instead of you having to think about how you can maximize the high seasons, instead of having steady ground all year round. Now, furthermore, in order to grow, your company and your e-commerce store through paid advertising, you also need to find and attract customers who may not be as interested or know about your product, because you will as time go on, you will reach people who are less and less aware, and this is also a key step to scaling your business through paid advertising. Because if we look at this graph, the 5 level of customer awareness, you will see that we have 5 levels, everything from most aware to product aware, solution aware, problem aware, and unaware. And obviously, when you just start spending capital on paid advertising, you'll reach the people who are in the market ready to buy, which is the most aware people. And that's also why you might have a really high ROAS on a low level of skill. But as you start to increase your spend, you will suddenly reach people who are product aware, solution aware, problem aware, and unaware. And that's why you have to look at your funnel holistically and make sure that you have ads and you have angles and you have concepts that essentially hit all 5 levels of awareness. Because if you do so, you will see that your revenue back end is a lot more steady instead of you having that revenue divergence. So, and also at scale, you'll need to be more you'll need to be more focused on the market segments that are colder, meaning solution, problem, and unaware, because those are the people at the beginning of the customer journey that you want to essentially take by the hand and guide them through the entire customer journey at the end, where they essentially convert at your store. Now, to achieve sustainable success, we have to create our own artificial blue ocean strategy, and this would essentially lead to lower customer acquisition costs, stable performance, and marketing efficiency ratio at scale, essentially helping you getting more out of your already existing ad spend and dominating competitors. And yet again, I have taken a case study with me here that is named The Secret to Building a Paid Advertising System That Grows Your Brand by 113% while staying profitable. It's a 13-minute case study that I have on my channel as well, and you can essentially have a look and see how I have done it for yet another client of mine here in Denmark, a brand called Cover Handskar that sells a low trigger product. And that case study goes over how I have essentially implemented this strategy to monopolize this specific market and essentially increased volume for this client of mine while still remaining profitable. Again, the case study is already on my channel. Now, with that said, I know this was a lot, and it's probably not what you hear normally when you see these sort of videos on YouTube. But if you are an e-commerce store owner and you want to learn more about how this can be applied to your brand, and understand how you can take these principles and essentially implement it in your already existing advertising strategy and advertising efforts, feel free to reach out. With that said, I hope that you learned something new, and I wish you a lovely, lovely day. Take care.